Procurement. Procurement can be described as the process of acquiring goods and services from a third-party vendor through a direct purchase, competitive bidding or tendering process, while ensuring the right quantity and quality. Procuring is most commonly associated with businesses, organizations and governments because they usually need to solicit services or purchase goods, usually relatively on large scale. In 2015, the UN member states adopted 17 Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, otherwise referred to as the 2030 Agenda or Global Goals. The 17 goals aim at creating a better, fairer world by 2030, ending poverty, urgently addressing climate change, and ending inequality. And all member states are duty-bound to incorporate them in their development plans and ensure implementation. Goal number 12 calls for guaranteeing sustainable production and consumption.
What that goal means is that while we are making an effort to develop as a nation, while we are making an effort to industrialize and set up more factories, of course, which will ultimately contribute to job creation and decrease unemployment rates, we need to do it in a sustainable manner.
Under that goal, that's where you find sustainable procurement. So there's an international obligation. All members of UN are obliged to comply and implement.
Uganda has put in place an elaborate system of institutions, laws and regulations to ensure the prudent use of public resources. Public sector procurement is at the center of the way public money is spent and hence plays a pivotal role in a country's public financial management system. The Ministry of Finance and Economic Development has the overall responsibility for public sector procurement, which includes direct responsibilities for developing and implementing public procurement policies and procedures with regard to public expenditure.
The Office of the Accountant General in government is the one which is responsible for the procurement policy. We report to the PSST and, of course, the Minister of Finance on the issues of procurement policy.
Launched in 2019, the National Public Sector Procurement Policy, which aims at improving public procurement, provides strategic direction for the procurement function through a defined policy framework.
In terms of economic growth, procurement is central in our agenda for promoting economic growth. Most of the government resources are spent through procurement. That is why we have, in our laws, made it explicit that there must be contracts reserved for the people of Uganda, and not only the people of Uganda, but also in among the people of Uganda, we want to see our youth doing something. We want to see our women doing something. We want to see our people with disabilities. We want to see equal opportunities for everybody.
We have done, for example, we have developed a 5-year national action plan for sustainable procurement, which will help government to integrate these aspects of sustainable procurement in the procurement cycle.
The policy specifies sustainable procurement, a procurement system that emphasizes the inclusion of socio-economic and environmental sustainable aspects.
Sustainable procurement is about incorporating these aspects in the traditional buying, removing away from looking at off-shelf price.
The Public Procurement and Disposal Authority is a government body under the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, responsible for developing guidelines and ensuring implementation of sustainable procurement policy.
In our role as PPDA, we must ensure that these standard bidding documents, provisions have been put so that the bidders even bid for these areas of environment, safety, social, and health. Those are mainly the 3 parameters we are looking at for sustainability.
But how is sustainable procurement applied to achieve its intended objectives?
We want to make sure that the procurements we make in this country do not destroy our environment. We want to make sure that the procurements we make do not affect our society and community. So it's not to be on the issue of price, who's the lowest. You're going to make a road. You go there with a lot of money, and then they end up having all the girls in the area getting out of school because of this contractor. Then that's a social disorder. That's the second objective. Then we want to make sure that we use procurement to support our economies, the local industries, the vulnerable groups. So you can use procurement because of the muscle it has. It can be used to promote the local economies, disadvantaged groups.
Kampala City, a sprawling metropolis covering a total area of 199 square kilometers. Just like any capital city, Kampala City authorities procure supplies for goods for the various social amenities, as well as services of contractors to build and maintain the city's infrastructure. KCCA is one of the government entities that has taken the lead in implementing the sustainable procurement policy.
Sustainable procurement, when we go to the environmental issues, look at the impact our activities have on the environment. One, for example, we need maram. When we go and excavate and we only leave the area excavated, we are leaving the environment degraded. So it is critical that when we incorporate the issue of sustainability, we must make sure those bore pits are restored to natural environment. If I talk of social areas, I mean our projects pass through communities, but as they are happening, what impact do they leave? So it is critical that we put such initiatives in our procurement to ensure that our people are protected, our environment is protected.
With a population of close to 2 million people who use social amenities as they go about their businesses, undoubtedly the city is bound to generate tons and tons of solid waste that must be cleared to keep the city clean. The jobs of keeping the city clean were ring-fenced and reserved for vulnerable members of the community, specifically women and the vulnerable youth.
We made reservation for such works or contracts to be taken up by our vulnerable urban population. These are women, the vulnerable youth. So they earn. That is the economic bit. They earn. They are kept busy.
Infrastructure development in Kampala City takes a big chunk of the city's budget. Construction of many of these roads is done by contractors who competitively bid for the projects, and sustainable policies considered and emphasized during the bidding process.
The rules emphasize that while conducting projects, procurement of projects and supplies and services, some components, some thresholds should be reserved by local companies. For example, this will help us grow our own contractors, grow our own technologies, grow our own or create our own employment opportunities to our people, also to have our money stay in the economy.
Go and ask roofing today, before reserving steel bars and after. Business has changed a lot because now all the steel is reserved for national manufacturers.
Approximately 1.9 billion hectares of Uganda is forested, accounting for 10%, having shrunk from 45% in 1890. The forest comprised both natural and established plantations. Currently, the rate of deforestation is estimated to be about 1% per annum. Uganda, like many countries in the world, is obliged to move towards sustainable forest management goals. Sustainable forest management has to keep the balance between three main pillars: ecological, economic, and social-cultural. Uganda is one of the countries that have defined standards which must be complied with for timber to be considered legal. The basic requirements is that timber must be harvested, processed, and traded in compliance with national and local laws and regulations. Forest Stewardship Council, a global organization that emphasizes responsible forest management, is promoting forest certification, and the component of sustainable procurement is embedded therein.
We promote responsible management, which translates into sustainable management of the forests, which means the products that come from such a forest should also be sustainable. And so we have what we call forest management certification, but we also have what we call chain of custody certification, whereby the product which comes from such a forest should be traceable up to the consumer. A consumer should be able to recognize which product is sustainable, and one of the ways to do that is, for example, to recognize the FSC logo, the FSC, that is Forest Stewardship Council label on a product. We also promote sustainable public procurement, and this is where governments come in. We engage and encourage governments to develop policies that promote procurement of sustainable products, and FSC certified products from the forest are part of that.
Busoga Forestry Company Limited, a subsidiary of Green Resources, is one of the companies certified by FSC in Uganda. The company leases 9,000 hectares from MFA and has planted and owned 7,000 hectares of forest in Bukaleba and Kachung Central Forest Reserves.
We have two certificates from FSC. One is for forest management, which ensures that we look after the environment, we look after the communities around us, we ensure that harvesting practices are done according to accepted norms, and that we comply with all the legislation with regards to making sure that the environment is protected while we harvest the trees. We have, as part of our invoicing process, on the actual invoice are the two certificate numbers, which are able to be accessed on a global database. If anybody, when we submit that invoice to you as a customer, you can then go and research what we are certified to do. We are convinced that the product we give you has complied with every single requirement of that certification standard.
Energy and mineral development. The ministry mandated to manage utilization of energy and mineral resources for development of Uganda. It sources out and contracts companies to construct power infrastructure and develops policies that guide construction and utilization of power generated from such energy infrastructure.
When you look at those projects, before you do anything, you have a pre-feasibility study that is looking at the environmental social impact assessment. Before you do that procurement, you are putting in the impact, the item of environmental as a pillar. Then you look at how is this procurement of Karuma, how is it going to affect the local population. That's where we have project affected persons, so that you relocate these people and put them in a better place. So you are looking at the social.
It has been proven that Uganda holds 2.5 billion barrels of oil reserves. This discovery attracted investment interest in the country's oil sector, specifically in the area of exploration and extraction. And in both processes, sustainable procurement is critically considered.
You can see how long it has taken to actually get a drop of oil from that area. It may not necessarily be lack of money, but it is the procedures that have been put in place to make sure that whatever is going to be done is done sustainably.
Mulago National Referral Hospital, the government's oldest, largest, and most specialized health facility in the country. From the 1960s, Mulago Hospital has been the center of excellence for patient care, training doctors, and research. The super specialized services in various disciplines are backed by state-of-the-art equipment and medicine that take care of thousands of patients that come to seek specialized treatment at the facility. This equipment is acquired through a meticulous procurement process focusing on sustainability.
As you can see, we have just undergone renovation, and in our procurement processes, all we are emphasizing is factors that lead to a safe environment. And the riding principle is what we call the healing environment. Now, the healing environment looks at different aspects of the hospital. The environment we live in terms of space, the environment we live in terms of the energy that we consume, the environment we live in terms of the water we consume, and all other factors.
Under sustainable procurement policy, supply of some of the medicines together with medical consumables have also been reserved for national manufacturers.
All pharmaceutical manufacturers in Uganda have reserved their drugs. Now, NMS, when NMS is because NMS buys drugs for Uganda, the first priority call off goes to Ugandan drugs, where they are manufactured in Uganda. So that is sustainable procurement, because once you do that, you are sustaining the economy.
The hospital is a high energy consumptive unit. As such, Mulago has moved away from the traditional less efficient heating and cooking methods and adopted sustainable cleaner systems. This approach has been embedded in the procurement process and strictly observed.
For example, water heating, we use solar water heating. In terms of cooking, we have a project with UNDP where our kitchen uses subsidized energy from, of course, umeme, but it's a special arrangement, and that makes it efficient. Number two is that in the renovation process, we have upgraded all our equipment to absorb what we call clean energy. So that's a big improvement that was factored in the procurement process of the renovation contract.
Besides, the concept of total cost of ownership, an aspect of sustainable procurement policy, is being implemented at Mulago and many other government entities.
This concept brings in the element of incorporating all the costs that are associated with what we buy.
The Atomic Energy Council, a corporate body that deals in regulating peaceful applications and managing of ionizing radiation.
If you don't have such a regulatory body and people are using atomic energy in the way they want, then nuclear energy has the capability of wiping out the whole world.
To ensure safety, the agency set up stringent guidelines to be followed for procurement and use of equipment that contains radioactive elements. Equipment such as X-ray machines, CT scan, but most importantly, the Cobalt-60 machine used in chemotherapy treatment for cancer patients.
We have standards for this equipment. So, if you are to procure equipment, it must conform to some standards. And there are two standards which we accept at the national level regarding devices or equipment that generate ionizing radiation. One of the standards is the IEC, but commonly called International Electrotechnical Commission. Another one is ISO. You have heard ISO, which is International Organization for Standardization. So, when you are going to procure and you notify us, we tell you that you must procure the equipment that conforms to these standards. There is another type of devices which have radioactive material. Now, radioactive materials continuously emit radiation. Now, those devices, the regulations say that upon use, you must return them to where you bought them from. So, at the time of importation, we also, one of the things we ask is the return agreement. So after you feel you no longer need it, you have to apply for export. So it has to be exported back.
An aerial view of Luwero Industries, one of the manufacturing complexes of National Enterprise Corporation, the production arm of Uganda People's Defence Forces. The corporation is made up of numerous entities ranging from manufacturing to construction. It outsources and procures raw materials to manufacture a variety of products for the army, government, and general public. NEC recognizes the importance of sustainable procurement and has comprehensively embraced the policy.
If you talk about sustainable procurement, then you talk about the integration of all those specifications and all those that you need in the 3 pillars that you require. You need to know what I'm going to procure environmentally. How is it going to affect us in the long run? After I've used it, will it affect me afterwards? Those ones you take care of it. Secondly, socially, how am I going to handle it? How is it going to help the people? Thirdly, is it going to contribute to the economy? So those 3 pillars are always catered for initially, in the initial stage.
NEC also ensures a sustainable way of selling their products by following them to the final end user. For example, apart from manufacturing arms and ammunition, the corporation also produces explosives for mining and construction purposes and follows up to ensure their safe use.
When you purchase from us, we go and use it for you and bring back the balance. We also go an extra mile to make it safe for the population. There are other armaments that the civilian population also may need. When the police recommends you to buy from us, we sell to you. But when it goes to UPDF and there's disposal, they have UPDF as its way of disposal. Its ways of disposal and its way of safety precautions.
The National Environment Management Authority, a government agency responsible for monitoring, coordinating, supervising, and regulating the national environment and environmental policy of Uganda. Implemented under NEMA, Switch Africa Green is a program that supports countries in Africa implement the 12th United Nations Sustainable Goal, which is sustainable production and consumption focusing on 3 sectors: manufacturing, tourism, and integrated waste management.
And the approach of this program was that it was done through 3 components. One of them was a networking component, where different countries that are participating in this program come together and share ideas. The other was green business development, where a number of grantees were granted money with beneficiaries to come up with, within those 4 sectors that I mentioned, to actually green their businesses. SMEs were looked at. The other component was basically the policy component, where we supported the Ministry of Trade to come up with a green manufacturing strategy. We supported the Ministry of Tourism to green its tourism bill. And then also we supported the Ministry of Finance to come up with a sustainable public procurement policy. When this policy was put in place, it actually caused a ripple effect. The repeal of the PPD Act to incorporate some of these clauses into the law. That is health, safety, environment, and social issues.
And NEMA's involvement resonates through government agencies all the way to private sector's activities.
NEMA basically works through lead agencies. And in this case, the Ministry of Finance and PPDA. And we helped them come up with at least the policy in place, the procurement policy, sustainable public procurement policy, and also now the new law has clauses that actually support implementation of some of these environment, health, social clauses. Now we expect that the PPDA, when they're giving out, for example, their standard bidding document, they incorporate all these. When a person is contracted to do a roads project, they should look at environment, health, and social, and safety actually.
Accord, a civil society organization that supports the development of policies and legal framework, which promotes conservation of environment, commends the government's adoption of the sustainable procurement policy, but cites challenges in its implementation.
It's an effort in the right direction. Because previously we've pushed or advocated for such a policy to make sure that in the procurement processes we build in principles of sustainability. And it's part of the work that we've done before. So we welcome the policy, we welcome the efforts to implement that policy. For it to be effective, we need to start by creating public awareness about this policy, but also indicating to citizens what role this policy is going to play
And I think once it has been understood by the players, it can play a very, very useful role in conserving our environment.
Sustainable procurement is a concept, is a complex process. We are going to do a phased approach. We are not going to do a big bang because there are many things we have to do. First of all, we have to prepare the market. We have to prepare our suppliers so that they know, they don't say we are marginalizing them. We have to prepare the stakeholders, the procurement cadre who are buying. Not everybody understands this concept. We have to prepare the contract committee members, the accounting officers, the user department who initiate the procurements. We have to prepare. So there's a lot of work we are doing. We've already started. We've already started on the procurement cadre, and our government is already funding us to do that, but we also think we are going to work with development partners to support us in this area.
The adoption of sustainable procurement policy demonstrates Uganda government's commitment to implementation of the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals, specifically Goal number 12, hence fulfillment of Uganda's obligation to ensuring creation of a better, fairer world.